The air tanks! Shouted Eric. Both he and Sid leaned out of the windows, pushing the cylinders downwards, and unscrewed the nozzles. Blasts of gas came out, propelling the truck higher into the sky. One of the back wheels just clipped the top of one of the tall chimneys. Now, how do we get to the zoo from here? Asked Eric. The old man looked down over London, a city he'd known his entire life. It suddenly looked unfamiliar from the air. Sid had never been in a plane before, but he had some sense of how to navigate from looking at maps during his all too brief adventure in the First World War. Let's follow the river until we reach Big Ben. Regent's Park is pretty much north from there. Once we find the park, the zoo is just at the top of it. Righty-ho, said Eric, rather settling into this role as co-pilot. The boy followed Sid's lead by putting on a leather flying helmet and goggles they'd taken from the downed bomber. Now, as they followed the snaking route of the Thames, they both felt like proper airmen. The pair smiled at each other. Codename Bananas is underway, declared Eric. It certainly is. After a while, Eric became worried that they weren't moving fast enough. What's the time? Look, replied the old man, pointing out of the side window of the truck. You can see for yourself. Eric spotted the Houses of Parliament up the river. The tower known as Big Ben loomed over it, the face of its famous clock illuminated in the dark. 4:30, said the boy. We have to hurry. The zoo closes at 5, so we've just got 30 minutes to save Gertrude. Full speed ahead. The pair turned the valves on the air cylinders another cycle. The truck picked up speed. Eric looked out of his window. The barrage balloon was still floating high above them. For now, they seemed to be passing over London undetected. The balloon floated silently in the dark sky above the city. However, if someone spotted them from the ground, they might assume it was an enemy aircraft, the return of a dreaded Zeppelin, maybe. If the air raid warning sounded, the sky would be a swarm of searchlights. There was every chance they would be shot out of the sky by anti-aircraft guns. Buckingham Palace was the next iconic building to loom into view, with its gardens on one side and St James's Park on the other. Just ahead to the west was Hyde Park with its famous lake, the Serpentine. As Sid and Eric flew over Marble Arch, they spotted Regent's Park with its gardens neatly laid out in a circle. Look, said Sid, pointing. We're nearly at the zoo. Let's hope we're not too late to save her. Hold on, old girl, we're coming for you. From the air they saw the last visitors leaving the zoo, the gate being locked behind them. In the distance a clock chimed 5 times. 5 o'clock, exclaimed the boy. We're moments away, replied Sid. Now they were sailing over the zoo itself, using the cylinders strapped to the side of the truck once more, and looking at the map they'd drawn of the zoo. They flew over the elephants, bears and camels. Up ahead was a giraffe, its tall neck stretched up into the sky. Duck, shouted Sid, and they passed just over her head. There's a duck, asked the boy. No, I was telling the giraffe. Oh, never mind. The boy looked at the map. Giraffes are here, so Gertrude's cage should be just there, he exclaimed, pointing ahead. Well done, we'll make a soldier of you yet. Let's begin our descent. Turning the air tank nozzles off, they began floating downwards, barely making a sound. Eric peered out of the window. To his horror, the gorilla was lying down flat on the ground of her enclosure. Standing over her in the gloom were 3 figures. From their outlines, it looked like Frown, Batter and Gnarl. No, exclaimed the boy, it looks like we're too late. Maybe not, replied Sid. First they'd have to shoot Gertrude with a dart to send her to sleep before Gnarl gives her that lethal injection. Eric looked down out of the truck window. He spotted that Miss Gnarl had a needle in her hand. She was tapping the liquid in the tube before leaning down to give the gorilla the poison. Eric leaned out and shouted, Stop! The 3 on the ground looked up. The sight of a truck dangling from the air from a balloon caused something of a shock. Immediately, Batter sprang into action. Enemy aircraft overhead, sir, he shouted. We're under attack. Wasting no time at all, he hoisted his rifle into the air and fired. The bullets blasted straight through the truck, shattering the windscreen. Let's go down, 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 cried Sid. The The pair angled the cylinders and twisted the nozzles open again. The truck descended sharply. More rifle shots rang out, startling the whole zoo. The noise was like fireworks. "I don't believe it," spluttered Frown. "It's Sidney Poit and that blasted boy." "Let me shoot the gorilla, sir." "Go ahead, Batter." Noel was not happy. The man cocked his rifle. "More air," said the boy. He and Sid turned the cylinders to full blast. The truck was now coming down sharply. It bashed the roof off the cage, sending it falling. They were all knocked to the ground, out cold. The boy then opened his door and leapt out. Sid kept the truck floating a short distance from the ground. Eric stepped over Frown, Batter and Noel. "Sorry about that, gentleman and lady," he said, before he reached his friend. Gertrude was lying on the ground motionless, her eyes closed. "How is the old girl?" called Sid from the truck. "Sleeping, I think. I don't know," replied Eric, before turning his attention to the gorilla. Gertrude, wake up," he said, shaking her, but there were no signs of life. The boy sank to his knees and hugged her tight. "Oh, Gertrude, please wake up. We're here to rescue you." Eric held on to the big furry beast, rocking her gently. He felt something sharp poking out of her body. Just as Sid had predicted, it was a dart, the one to send her to sleep before she would be sent to sleep forever, and it was sticking out of her back. The boy wrapped his fingers round it and yanked it out. The shock of the dart being pulled out must have woken Gertrude up, because immediately her eyes opened wide. "Gertrude!" exclaimed Eric. The sleepy gorilla laughed and pulled the boy close to her for a cuddle. "You're alive! You're alive! You're alive!" "Cuddles are all well and good," shouted Sid from the truck, "but this is a rescue mission." I know," called Eric. "I will just love her so much. Let's get her on board before these three wake up." "More cuddles later, Gertrude, I promise," said Eric, before he wriggled out of her embrace and scrambled to his feet. He leaned down, taking her huge hairy hand in his, and tried to get her to stand up. But the sleepy gorilla just wouldn't budge off the ground. Instead, she let out a giant yawn. "Uncle Sid," called Eric, "I can't lift her." "Then tie this round her ankle," said Sid, throwing down the rope they'd taken from the bomber. Eric tied his best knot around Gertrude's ankle, who didn't seem the least bit bothered about it. Next, the boy clambered back into the truck, which was still floating at head height next to him. With the extra weight of the gorilla, the truck needed big blasts of air from the cylinders to ascend. As Gertrude was lifted into the air, her big, heavy body slid over the three lying on the ground. One by one, they all came to, going, "What's going on? My head hurts." "They're stealing your gorilla, sir." As Gertrude was swept up into the sky, dangling upside down on the rope, Batter just managed to grab hold of the gorilla's arm. As he was lifted into the air, Frown grabbed hold of Batter's ankle. "I can't let those two get away with this." Together they all soared up into the sky. Now that there were a further three people weighing the truck down, more and more blasts of air from the cylinders were needed. "Stop that balloon!" shouted Batter from below. "Bring back my gorilla!" shouted Frown from below him. Inside the truck, Eric turned to Sid, a look of fright on his face. "Oh no, that wasn't meant to happen. What are we going to do now?" The old man huffed. "We'll just have to try to shake them off." "I know just the place," said Eric, looking at the map. "Dead ahead." "Where?" "You'll see." Remembering his adventures from the night before, the boy reached out of the truck and angled his oxygen cylinder so they were powering along in the right direction. They passed over the lions. One of them snapped at Noel's bottom with its razor-sharp teeth. Dead ahead was the penguin pool. Sid smiled. Now he understood what the boy meant. He too steered the course straight at it, just at the right height. The dangling gorilla just missed the top of the overhanging tree, but Batter battered one of the branches. The force of the impact made him lose his grip on the gorilla's arm. They all plummeted through the air and landed in the penguin pool with three epic splashes. The penguins squawked, clearly excited to have not one but three new playmates tonight. Sid and Eric looked out and chuckled at the scene. "Get off me!" Frown was screaming as he bobbed up and down in the water. "Or no fish for you tomorrow." "My rifle's all wet." As the truck sailed out of the zoo, Sid gulped. The seriousness of what had just happened was dawning on him. "There's no going back now," he uttered. "I guess we're in deep doo-doo," agreed the boy.